Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State, also live on YouTube and Facebook, having the crucial conversations that Erie needs. And we're going back to housing today, and I'm excited to welcome back Boo Hagerty. He is with us from the Hamot Health Foundation, and Laura Guncheon is with us. She's the Executive Director of Build Community Development Corporation. Folks, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having us.
You got it. Laura, I don't think you've been on in a while, if ever.
If ever. No, I have not.
So we're a family show. Let's get an origin story. Tell us how you came up.
Sure. So I actually grew up in McKean County. A small,
Bradford.
Near Bradford, yep.
Yeah.
Port Allegheny, oftentimes the coldest spot in the state of Pennsylvania. We're proud of that. I had 62 kids in my graduating class. We had 500 kids K through 12. Wow. Very, very small school. In an area like that, you either play sports or get in trouble, and we played sports, and that was my ticket to college. And then what brought me to Erie was graduate school. I came up in the Administration of Justice program at Mercyhurst, then college, now university.
Administrative Justice?
Yeah. Yep, Administration of Justice is my master's program. Yep, and I'm not going to date myself here, how would be able to figure out how old I am, but I met Boo Hagerty all of those years ago. I was actually a grad student in the Civic Institute, and I was placed at a fledgling organization called the Children's Advocacy Center, and it was kind of under the UPMC mothership at that point, and that's where I first met Boo, and however many years later, here we are again. It's
amazing, Boo, how many different things that, you know, your involvement with Hamot, with the Health Foundation, kind of launched or got involved. I had no idea about that story.
Yeah, 25 years, going on 26 for me at Hamot. And in some ways it's been a blur, you know, but other ways, man, I mean, so much time has passed. But yeah, we've been able to launch a bunch of things. And along the way you meet great people and you know great people and you figure out how you reconnect later. And working with Laura has been nothing but a dream.
Laura, this is quite the undertaking. Okay, we're going to take on homelessness in Erie, what we consider one of our top 3 issues that our community is facing. You raised your hand and said, "Hey, when Mayor Devlin was elected, you're like, I'm going to take on this role at Build CDC." What was some of your thought process?
Well, I'll tell you, it was very much like jumping on a moving train. And that kind of has been my career from the beginning. I've always been like first soldier on the beach. We don't necessarily know how to do this. We know where we want to go, but we don't necessarily know how to do this. So the groundwork was there. The roadmap was there. We knew that permanent supportive housing was the way that we were going to end chronic homelessness in the city. And it was my role to step into that and figure out all the details from here's an idea to something that has come to fruition. And we're still figuring out those details. We're on probably iteration number 12 of what the schoolhouse apartments may look like. But the goal has remained the goal, to provide a permanent location for folks to live with the appropriate wraparound services so that they can be successful in that place for as long as they need it and then matriculate into society.
Would you both consider that the housing first model philosophy is the driving force in your approach to the schoolhouse apartments?
Absolutely.
You talk about that, Boo.
Yeah, I mean, it is the model, and it's been 3 years we've been talking about this.
Yeah.
And the reason it's not done yet is it's the most difficult and the most challenging and the most expensive model. Expensive up front. Once you get it going, we are going to save an enormous amount of money for the county, because these folks on the street right now and the services that they're receiving average $120,000, $150,000 a year that we're spending on a person who's homeless. Figure that out. Between the healthcare needs that they have, the shelters that they go to, the centers that they go to, those all cost money. We put them into a permanent situation, it's going to cost $1,000 a month for their rent, and maybe another $1,000, $1,500 a month for their services. We're going to save a tremendous amount of money, but the capital stack to get that done is extremely hard, and that's why people quit. And Laura talks about jumping on a moving train. I feel like I jumped in front of it, but it is not a model that exists in Erie, Pennsylvania right now. And we are going to get there. We're going to get the money. We're going to get these first 25, 30 people housed. And we're going to demonstrate that it is the absolute right thing from a humanitarian standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint.
Well, and I think it was really smart that the hospital saw, okay, we can quantify, we can put dollars to what this homeless issue is costing us.
Yes.
Would you say that most, if not all, have absolutely no medical coverage that when they show up at the ER?
Well, no, they some of them have Medicaid, so there's a little bit of coverage that some folks do have. And if they didn't have it, we have a whole outreach team that gets it for them.
Okay.
So there is that, but there are folks that along the way they lose it, they lose their identity. You know, it's hard to keep their individualism, if you will, when they're out on the street as much as they are. But that said, even if we do bring them into we were just talking about this off air, even if we do bring them in the hospital and we have to admit them, we cannot discharge a person back to the street. So we have to discharge that patient somewhere. So let's say that patient is ready to be discharged, but it's 7, 10, 15, 20 days before we can discharge that patient. That costs everybody.
Yeah.
You know, something. That's a bed that we're not getting paid for at the hospital, but that's a bed that 5 or 10 patients who want to get in aren't getting in. So it bogs down the system. So there's a business case for this, Joel, but it's not about the business case. It's about the right thing to do. And I have to tell you that a couple of times, Laura can tell you how many times she's talked me off a ledge where I said, it's just not feasible anymore. It's just going to be too expensive. It's not doable. And I would call some of the folks who run the shelters and I would say, why don't we take this building? And we didn't talk about this yet. We bought the old Erie School District building at 21st and Sass.
That's where I went to kindergarten.
All right, Washington School.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So we bought your school. Okay, we're going to name a room after you now. Let's make a note of that.
No, please don't.
But I've called some of the folks who run the bigger shelters and I said, you know what? We can't get this done. Let's just build another shelter. And they're like, no, you have to stick with this. Please stick with this.
Wow.
Yeah, so we do. And we stick with it. And Laura has done a great job and Mayor Devlin did an incredible job of getting us to this point. Mm-hmm. So we have a great team at the foundation, and Build CDC started as much to house the homeless. It's not the only group of people we need to house. It's not the only work we're doing. But I talk about unintended consequences all the time. And what this has forced us to do while we are waiting to get these apartments built is we now have 4 people on our team who are out in the streets every day. And they're catering to the needs of these folks. They're taking care. They're helping them with their meds. They're doing wound care. They get them some food. They get them a place to stay for a couple of weeks and get them some shelter while they're recovering from something. They're helping them with their addictions. They're helping them with all kinds of physical and mental health issues. We have 2 people, full-time mental health counselors on the street with those 4. So, and we're working with all the centers around town, and they're very cooperative. You know, big shout out to the Mental Health Association and Pat Stuck and the work that they're doing there, because we're partnering with Pat. She has a lot of the folks in there, and we're flying in and helping her with some of these folks and helping them with their needs and building trust. And as we do this, it gives us more and more confidence that we can do this right, and even if they're not housed yet, we're still taking care of them.
Okay, I just want to make sure I'm clear.
Yes.
So you basically deployed 6 more individuals on the street.
Yes.
Than that did not exist a matter of months ago.
Yes.
And again, we've been talking about homelessness around here for a long time. I've interviewed the home team. I've interviewed the folks that run the shelters. What was this the missing piece of just street level case management? What was the felt need here?
Yeah,
Laura?
I think it's street level case management. I also think it's access to trusted health care, right? Boo talks about how expensive it is to enter the hospital through the emergency department. We know that our unhoused friends are entering care through the emergency department at X amount of cost. We also know that it's being utilized more frequently than it should. We also know that some of our friends have not been there in a really long period of time, and by the time they get there, they are incredibly unwell. So meeting people where they are and the needs that they have has been wildly successful in ER avoidance of, oh, Miss Sarah Perlinsky is our kind of the guru who runs the team, who's also a nurse. Oh, Miss Sarah, I have chest pains. I need to go to the ER. And she talks with them. It ends up being GERD or something very simple,
Okay.
right? But it's that personalized attention in a place that is comfortable and accessible to the unhoused individual, and they trust her. So they look for her to come to MHA. If she's not there for some reason, Miss Sarah, I missed you today. When are you coming back? And that personal touch we have found to be incredibly valuable, important, and worthwhile.
And I'll give you a perfect example. You know this man. You've seen him walking up and down your street. He has a blanket around him all the time. You know this man. This man would not go to an emergency room. He did not trust anybody or anything. Sarah developed that trust with him to say, you have to come in because he has chronic health issues, and has got him to come in a couple times more. He just had pretty major surgery in a hospital, very successful surgery. We got him insurance. We understood his system enough that we got him through his payee to get some of the money that's owed to him through Social Security. This is a guy who was employed most of his life. He is now very healthy and in a secured nursing facility doing remarkably well.
Oh my gosh.
Guarantee you he'd have passed away by now. When
I want to say praise God. I mean,
Right.
that's astounding, Boo.
that's what's happening. And that's not Laura and I. That's our team
Right.
on the street building that trust.
Because we all know who he is.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
mean,
your point about gap filling is well taken, because we talk about this all the time, that our team is not bound by this is my job and this is the only thing that I can do. We often are the ones that raise our hands to say, oh, we can do that because it's nobody else's job. Well, it's absolutely our job, because those silos are preventing our people from getting where they need to go or accessing the care that they need. So we spend a lot of time filling the gaps.
We're talking to Boo and Laura here from Build CDC, taking our first break. Stay with us. 418 on Talk Erie. We're talking about how the impact of the Build Community Development Corporation and this schoolhouse apartments project could really be a game changer for Erie here. And I've got Laura and Boo with us here. Let's kind of talk about the broader scope here when it comes to housing. Right now, you all are a member of this triangle. Talk about that with what else is going on.
Sure, and I think it's a good example of it's contagious, and if you work together, it's going to work better. Jenny Hagerty, no secret, is my sister-in-law.
Yeah.
And super proud of the work Jenny's doing at Mercy Center for Women. When I toured her Mercy Anchor building, I was very impressed. Laura was on the board at the time. Very impressed with how they took that Holy Rosary School and made it work. And I said to Jenny, this is a bit of inspiration for us to say we can take an old school. We took an old school and made it a training center. Now we can make an old school and make it apartments. So I saw what she did. Serving different audiences. She's got a whole mission at Mercy Center, great mission, women, children, especially in domestic situations. But she's actually stretching her legs a little bit too. And there's some men living in there, and she's seen the need. And Jenny's taught us a lot about what this looks like. So started to partner with Jenny. Well, then Tim Nicastro, who we all know, went over as well for a tour and said, I want to buy, it had been on his mind to buy his old school in Little Italy, St. Paul's, not just to make meatballs, but to start serving some people. And
right.
So Tim called me on a Friday night, maybe about a year ago, and said, why don't you and Jenny and I sit down and talk about how we work together? And Tim's a visionary. And so we sat down and said, let's not duplicate services. If we can get one maintenance person for the 3 buildings, if we can get one van driving people back and forth, if we can have, one behavioral health counselor, one whatever, and provide the services and everything in our buildings, but work together. So that's what the Triangle of Hope is. And Sacred Heart, the old Sacred Heart School, 26 in Liberty, Jenny will convert into 21 or 22 apartments to continue to serve her mission. We'll take Washington School. We talked about 22 apartments. And Tim's going to turn St. Paul's really into a service hub. Food will be the primary source, and it won't just serve the people in the buildings, it'll serve the neighborhoods. He's working really closely with Greg Hall. If you haven't had Greg in here and the work he's doing yet at the Second Harvest Food Bank.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Greg's doing so Greg's going to put a marketplace in there, much like he has in our neighborhood center over on East Avenue. And you know what? It's just saying we don't all have to go at this alone. Let's combine our resources, combine our brains, and let's work on this a little bit better together. And that's what's happening.
And that really kind of gives you an idea of the scope of the need at that very basic level of just getting people into homes.
Right.
And also with Tim kind of doing some occupational therapy, if you will,
right on.
Teaching people.
That's a good way to put it.
Right?
Yeah.
As well as, the subsistence of food here. It sounds like, though, that this schoolhouse apartments is like you're trying to hit home or 500 feet. Talk about what the necessary capital stack is to do a $30 million project like this.
Well, if it's $30 million, I'm walking out. So
it's not that high?
No, it's not that high.
All
yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Maybe all together across the triangle.
Across the triangle, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the number I heard.
Yeah, that's true. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
No, you do your homework. You know.
Well,
yeah.
You're ahead of me always.
I think what's frustrating for us is the longer we're in the planning phase, the more the price goes up.
I was going to say
started
the
this
construction
conversation-
prices.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that's outpacing the cost of construction is probably poor Tim Nicastro, the cost of claims at Erie Insurance,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So he feels our pain. So you start the conversation 3 years ago, it's a $9.5, $10 million project. Okay. Present day, it's probably $11.5, $12 million project because the cost of materials, the cost of labor, the cost of everything. So to put that together, one would think we could go and get, generous private philanthropy with no strings. Well, that's not realistic. Now, that's an element of the capital stack, of course. You have lots of folks in the community that believe in this vision and want to put their dollars
And are
behind
there
that.
not national concerns that are in this space too, Laura?
There are.
Okay.
A lot of that money is funneled then through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. million. So there are some HUD dollars, but they're facilitated by PHFA or they're facilitated by the city. So we were awarded $2.2 million from the city home ARP funds. So that's a big part of the capital stack. We just applied for some PHFA, Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, dollars last week, about $5.5 million in home ARP funds there. Those dollars are encumbered, though. You know, they come with one prime general contract. They come with performance bonds. They come with all of these things that end up adding cost to the project.
Did you get any RACP funding at all yet on this?
We did not do RACP. We
Okay.
don't necessarily meet the requirements for RACP as the RACP present day. Now, RACP
right.
in the past we would have, but RACP present day is tied to job creation.
Gotcha. Yeah.
As is CRIS, and CRIS is tied to the increment. We did apply for CRIS. We heard unofficially that it wasn't necessarily one of the top projects in Harrisburg. Erie advocated for it very strongly, and we did have a mixed use component. Boo and I were talking about this earlier today. CRIS increment is what goes back into the community, right? Those tax dollars that are generated. In a project like Schoolhouse, we're not creating a lot of increment.
Understood.
There. So we
Yeah.
get it. So we've pivoted. We've had some private philanthropic conversations. The Erie Community Foundation has been a great partner and will continue to be. So we're pretty confident in, might not be the full 5.5 from PHFA, but we're pretty confident we'll be close to that. And if that's the case, then we're ready to go.
You also have to set it up where it would be self-sustaining, because in order to
Right.
make the Housing First work, you have to have those wraparound services. So you're really kind of creating another agency.
We are. The operations budget, once we're open, is, well over $1 million a year to keep this place going every day. And we'll figure that piece out as it comes,
Okay.
because there's grant money for that as well. And we have to partner very closely with the county. And that's going to be very strategic when the time comes. The county has been in the room with us. The city's been in the room with us. But a lot of the folks on the public side have said, hey, you're on the private side, good luck. If you get it figured out, let us know. So that's where we are right now. And we're going to get it figured out. We're very confident that in the next 3 to 6 months, we're going to have that capital stack built. If we don't, we have decisions to make,
Okay.
and we can make those decisions, because the Hamot Health Foundation board, to their credit, has taken a big leap with us to put the initial investment. We have well over $1 million out of our foundation's money that could go to other things,
Right.
but we decided to put it to this right now, and that's $1 million we're never getting back, if we don't get this figured out. So maybe my board's hearing that for the first time. So
You're creating some landmarks of saying we've got to
Yeah.
go through and now get this done.
someone had to put something in here, and we're happy to do that. We've got skin in the game. We got to get this done.
And a big partner that we have not mentioned that we would be remiss if we did not is the Housing Authority
Okay.
of the
Yes.
city of Erie.
Great point.
The operational dollars work because each one of those 22 apartments has a project-based voucher attached to it. So it's at no cost to the individual. Regardless of their income level, it's at no cost to the individual, which is a little bit different model than Mercy Center. Mercy Center has a cost-sharing model, is more transitional in nature.
We're talking about Build CDC. Got to go to the news break here. It's Talk Erie. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show, live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. Laura Guncheon and Boo Hagerty are with us here from Build CDC. We're talking about the schoolhouse apartments and homelessness in general and the solution side of it all. Okay, folks, let's get to what is the latest iteration of the schoolhouse apartments, because I've heard a bunch of different things. We've got the basis of the Washington School. Is that the extent of where the build is going to be, or are there any outbuildings on that lot?
Sure.
Off?
So the first iteration would be anywhere from 22 to 25 apartments, and in the old school.
And that's what, a 3-story building?
It's a 4-story.
Four-story. Wow.
Yep, and it has a ground floor. Obviously, no apartments on the ground floor.
Okay.
When we were going after CRIS dollars and thought we needed mixed use, we had commercial tenant space proposed for the ground floor. Potentially don't have to do that. We can get additional apartments in there and move Safe Harbor Behavioral Health and Regional Health Services down to that ground floor. There is talk, too, as we know that our number for the chronically unhoused is well beyond 22 to 25 about what that second phase is. So Build bought that entire block from Sass to Peach. Okay. If you think about the east side of that's where Holman parks some of their vehicles, there is room there for a new build that could be an additional 50, an additional 40, all predicated on the vouchers. So there was an organization that answered the RFP the first time around prior to Build, CHN, Cleveland Housing Network, and had a proposal for a new build right on the corner of 21st and Peach, closer to Holman, but couldn't get the project-based vouchers associated with that.
What are project-based vouchers? What is that?
Sure. So it is a program through HUD that is facilitated by the Housing Authority of the City of Erie. When you think colloquially of, I lived in the projects, project-based vouchers project. So it's the old school, and I don't think Erie had a project-based voucher project since like the 60s or 70s, and maybe it was one of the towers downtown. But that's what you traditionally think of the project.
Is Hands involved in that kind of project-based voucher? I can ask them, but I mean, I'm just wondering, all the different levels of how housing happens. We've obviously got the Housing Authority. You're working with them.
Yeah.
Right.
But then there's, Hands and other organizations that are private organizations kind of in this space between homelessness and affordable housing, correct? And maybe even some workforce housing, I would think.
So Hands is subsidized.
Okay.
I don't know their business model well enough to know if it's through the Housing Authority. I don't think that it is. I know that they do utilize some home funds through the city to help with the affordability of some of their units. Hands does a remarkable job. They are a low-income housing tax credit, LIHTC developer, and they do that very, very well. They're also a CHODO, a Certified Housing Development Organization, which then there are dollars at the city level that are reserved for CHODOs to spend home funds.
So you hear all these alphabet soup of programs. To the average taxpayer, they're saying, why are we still even talking about this?
So, I walk in the room the first time knowing nothing about any of this.
Yeah.
And you try to learn as fast as you can. It's confusing, and no wonder people are confused, because it's confusing. She just rattled off all these acronyms, as you said. What I simply have to understand is every place that someone lives, someone has to pay for it. And how that model works is different anywhere you go. There's Section 8, there's project-based vouchers, there's all. So the entire time that I've been in the room saying, I will raise our hand as Hamot Health Foundation and Build to work on this, we thought that project-based vouchers were the answer to our prayers. And that through the Housing Authority of the City of Erie, that's where those could come. Cleveland Housing Network in Cleveland that we modeled ourselves after, the county pays for it. Oh. So in what was that, Cuyahoga County?
Yeah.
The county pays, and they have, I saw 4 of their buildings. They have 12, average of 50 apartments. So do the math. There's probably 600 apartments that the county of Cuyahoga County pays for those apartments, and they don't use the HUD vouchers. That's smart business, because now, as I told you earlier in the show, it's less expensive to permanently house them with the services than it is to keep them on the street. And I don't know that we can ever get our county there. I think it's going to be hard, but HUD, project-based vouchers, was the answer. So when we started down this road, we thought we were going to build 72. So your question's a great question. That building of 50, new building, 22 in the current building, 72. Somewhere along the line, the housing authority realized they don't have that many vouchers, and it's not their fault.
Yeah,
it's just there's only so many vouchers that they can give out based on their quotas. And
do we get impacted by population loss that for that kind of federal funding loss? Is that possible?
I don't know.
Great
That's a good question.
Not sure.
That's a good question.
I'm just wondering if we're converging on multiple maladies, if you will.
Yeah, when you talk about housing, I think Dusty Dennis will forget more about housing than I'll ever know. You know, so
sharp. Yeah.
She's very sharp. She does a great job, and Dusty has been, to Laura's point, incredibly supportive. But we're not going to be successful till we get to scale. And we're probably 5 years, 10 years away from scale, but that doesn't mean we stop. You gotta, you have to keep going. It took Cleveland decades, to get to where they are.
Okay, so this is and it's not emergency housing; it's permanent. Supportive housing.
Right.
Is there a therapy though in this? For example, is there the thought that someone who let's face it, if it's supportive housing, they probably are dealing with some kind of drug and alcohol or mental illness or whatever. Maybe they could get some therapy, get some healing going.
That's the supportive part.
That's
permanent supportive housing. They will have therapy.
Can they ever graduate out of this?
Yes.
Sure they can.
There are people in Cleveland, when we saw the model really working, there's people there 2-3 years. There's people there 12 years. It just depends on that person. But absolutely, I have a vision that we can graduate these folks, get them into their own place, and get them into the workforce.
Yeah.
Homeless are not what people think they are. These are smart people who somewhere along the line, something went wrong in their life. Mm-hmm. And being on the street, as long as you're on the street, they become addicted. I would become addicted to something if I was sleeping on a bench for a month.
I think you taught this to us the last time you were here, understand if you had to sleep on a bench, how sleep deprived you would be because you're just worrying about your stuff and about your being.
Right. I talked about the Geneva Convention. The Geneva Convention says that a prisoner of war cannot be sleep deprived. It is against the rules of the Geneva Convention that you cannot sleep deprive, because when you sleep deprive someone for more than 48 hours, they lose all ability to function.
Incredible.
So these folks are sleep deprived, thus they have to numb themselves. And that's where the addiction comes from, and that's where the cycle starts. And now these are folks who've been kicked out of every shelter because their behaviors change. And when your behaviors change and you act up at a shelter, the volunteers there, most shelters are run by volunteers. They're not going to put up with it, and they send them back on the street. It's a vicious cycle, Joel.
Talk about what is our reality. When we talk to the folks in the mission, when we talk to Brian Johansson, he talks about their outreach to tent cities along the tracks. That's still happening in Erie.
Oh yeah,
and it's a shocking thing. And again, the schoolhouse departments are part of that solution, right?
Without a doubt. That's their community. There are folks that we might say, we've got an apartment for you, and they may not be ready to go because you have one for me, but what about my 3 friends up on the tracks?
And we take care of each other.
And we take care of each other. So they won't leave each other. It is a challenge. I'm telling you, it'll be a whole show to figure out when we're done what 22 are coming. Who are the right 22 folks to put in there, and will they come? They tell a great story. Wyatt Schrader and Karen Billowith really did this in Idaho, and that's where we're learning from Karen and Wyatt and others. Wyatt tells a great story of a woman who got an apartment. This is her key. This is your apartment. For the first 2 weeks, she slept at the dumpster outside. For the next 2 weeks, she slept on the floor in the apartment and finally went to the bed because she felt like, well, this is false. This isn't, someone's going to kick me out. This isn't real. And the reality is a whole nother thing. But back to your question. Yes, support every day to help these folks get on their feet.
Okay, you do the math. It's $500,000 an apartment, right? 22.
Sure. Yeah.
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 Is that just the reality of what things cost these days?
Indeed, it is. And that's very frustrating. We talk
Trying
about
to work
this
me up, aren't you?
all the time.
So I don't mean
Poking the
to
bear
provoke
here.
you, but it's
Yeah.
like, when did these numbers go so crazy in Erie, Pennsylvania?
And that's for a renovation. Imagine a new build.
Yeah. It's very, very expensive. The only reason I continue to pursue it from our end, because it is there is an ROI. Forget the humanitarian issue. That's reason enough, But there is an ROI to the greater system when this is done, and it's been in practice for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Again, we saw it work in Cleveland.
Yeah.
I buy with my eyes. I had to see it and believe it. And you talk to enough folks and you believe it. But yes, it's incredibly expensive.
Yeah,
It's frustrating.
you realize the folks in Fairview are yelling at the radio saying, I've got a house that's $400,000 just next door. Put them in there. But that's not
Talk
what
about
we're
dignity
talking
and
about
durability,
here.
because you answered
Yes.
that question well.
Sure. So are we building, are we putting in quartz countertops and, all these glorious tile bathrooms? We are not. We are building for dignity and durability, and those two things do not have to be mutually exclusive. And sometimes when you have low-income housing tax credits or subsidized housing, you don't build for either. It's as quick and as cheap as you can build, and, they're just going to turn it and burn it anyway. Well, there's such thing as pride in property, right? And Dusty Dennis said that to me, and I thought that was so right on about pride in property, and that's kind of the ECAB model too, if you think about it, right?
Yeah.
High class environment shapes behavior, all of those things, world class opportunities. Why can't folks that are low income or moderate income have a very nice place to live when a solid surface countertop is not that much more than a stone countertop? Right? And you have opportunities to have conversations with your contractors to say, this is what we're doing. And you find that they're very generous to say, you know what, I have some tile in my warehouse that I'm tired of moving. Would you like that? Yes, we would. So there are opportunities to, build that community out in the community as well of people that really do want to help, which then helps with your bottom line. But absolutely building for dignity and durability at the same time.
Let's talk timeline here. Again, you kind of indicated, Boo, that in the next 6 months are going to be pretty crucial on deciding the direction of the Stonehouse Apartments, right?
Yes. Schoolhouse.
Schoolhouse.
That's
excuse me.
okay.
Yeah.
Stonehouse was an old restaurant.
Yeah, sure was. Yeah.
We feel confident that we should hear something positive from PHFA maybe by mid-May, and then if we hear a vote of confidence that grant is going to come our way, well, then the work has to come to get the project lined up to meet all the requirements that they have.
Have you started any demo up there?
Just asbestos abatement. That's
Okay.
it. We really can't start anything because a lot of these grants are drawdowns, and you really can't start the work until they're awarded because they're not going to pay you for what you've done.
Right.
So I would say the next 6 months are very, very vital for us to know that we can move forward positively and we have the capital stack built. Once we know that, what I do know is we have a great partner in Steve Spalding from Spalding Banks, and Laura and Steve are a great team. They will engineer this meticulously so that I truly believe that no pressure on Laura, but this is live radio. They'll come in under budget.
So they're your developer, they're your GC or Spalding Banks?
Project manager.
Project manager.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
Yep. We've missed one winter already.
Yeah.
Right? We thought that we were going to be operational by this past winter. We're going to miss another winter next year. We can't miss a third winter.
Wow. The again, we're trying to get this homeless situation on the solution side, and this is a data-driven Yeah, I always talk about Erie being the show me city. You know, we want to make sure it worked. It's you're saying it worked in Idaho. It worked in Cleveland.
So temporary, if you go into a temporary setting, you're homeless and you go into a temporary setting, 70% chance you'll be homeless again. In this model, if we get you into this permanent supportive solution, there's only a 10% chance you'll be homeless again.
Wow.
That's
pretty good.
That when I said buy with our eyes, that's you know, we kick the tires on all this. We don't necessarily have. I have a great board chair. Her name is Beth Burnside, and Beth is very supportive of the work we're doing. Beth has always said to me, "You don't have to invent the wheel. This has been done successfully somewhere. Go find best practice and replicate that." ECAT is a replicated model. Our School of Nursing is a replicated model. So I don't think it's actually a bad thing that we're trying to make data-driven decisions.
Yeah, why don't we take a minute and talk about what 2026 looks like for the Health Foundation? What are some of the big items other than build on your plate?
Laura, I'm going to have you take that because you're working on a bunch of great stuff right now. So give them the rundown.
Sure. So not only are we in the chronically unhoused space, but we're also a large seat at the table for affordable housing. And you've had lots of guests on in that regard. And we're so grateful. And so it's so awesome to have the mayor in her seat and the county executive in her seat because they understand the need for quality, accessible, safe, affordable housing, whereas before we didn't necessarily have that same conversation.
What do you feel that your role is in all that? I mean,
sure,
looking at blight abatement?
Absolutely. Okay. As a nonprofit community developer, we don't necessarily have to make 15% or 10% like a GC would on top of a project. We also qualify for grants and loans that for-profit developers don't. And it's also sometimes an easier entry point for folks to have somebody who gets it that can sit at the table and say, you don't have to do it the way that you've done it in the past, and we're here to help you. We're here to facilitate the conversation. We can be your developer. We don't have to be your developer. We just want to be part of the conversation. So it's no secret HHF and Build are heavily invested in the East Avenue corridor. Okay. We have a number of residential properties there right now under renovation. One will hopefully be leased up in the middle of May, which is really exciting. That was the first learning lab for the ECAT construction trades students. So Build holds a grant for on-the-job training. So we actually pay the construction trade students to get real job site experience. And we've utilized that property, which we bought from the Redevelopment Authority. It was a blighted property. Actually had a very tragic overdose on site. Really cool to come from the ashes. Yeah. Like I said, that was the learning lab for that. We'll move that learning lab down the street to 833 East Avenue, another Redevelopment Authority property where we'll have similar experiences for them. We just bought the Wayne Park Baptist Temple right next door.
Oh, I didn't know they sold that. Wow, okay.
We did. Now they'll continue to worship in the front and have their fellowship there, and then we'll renovate the back annex into an expansion of the UPMC Jameson School of Nursing.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so 2 state-of-the-art simulation labs.
I mean, that thing is a rock.
It is a rock.
I've been in there a few times.
It is a relic. Yeah. It has really good
it's
bones.
just so well built.
Upon this rock, we will build our church. Right? We will build our school.
Exactly.
It has really good bones. So that'll be 2 state-of-the-art simulation labs for the school, a 50-seat lecture hall, and dedicated admissions and financial aid. They are busting at the seams at ECAT. You know, that school was built for 100 students, and they're like 200, 250.
There's 250 nursing students.
Are there really?
Yeah. And there's nowhere to park. I don't know if you've ever been to ECAT, but there's absolutely nowhere to park.
Not a ton of parking.
Yeah. So we'll do a 50-spot off-street parking lot. That work started last week.
That's truly exciting.
It's really exciting.
And it makes that, what was it supposed to be called? East Park, Wayne Park there? I mean, it really is creating a sense of place there.
The whole corridor's coming back. It's been great to watch. But housing, we want to look at helping people buy their own home.
Yeah.
Where you live dictates your health, and I'll say it live. People want to kill me for saying it, but I want to get all these blighted properties that the city has and start to restore them with modular housing and make it so that people can buy their own home. We have a lot of graduates out of our programs, the construction trades program, our May program, our nursing program. Now folks are working, making a family sustaining wage. You're a young family with a couple of kids, you've dreamed of buying a house. there's some beautiful houses that Build can be the developer. We'll develop them, we'll get them done, and then we'll sell them.
Yeah.
And I think with Erie Bank is a great partner on Parade Street. What they've done on Parade Street is fantastic. They have some first-time home buyer grants available to help people with closing costs. And now we can have people owning their home who never dreamed of it. We have nurses in our hospital right now who never dreamed of being a nurse. You cast the net wide enough and you give people an opportunity, and they will sprint through that door. So those are some of the fun things that we're working on top of growing our outreach team that we talked about earlier.
Amazing.
Yeah.
A lot of work. Again, y'all are saying we'll raise our hand. We'll be a part of the solution.
Yes.
That's pretty remarkable stuff.
But that's we're blessed to be able to do it.
Boo Hagerty, Lauren Guncheon, thank you so much from Build Community Development Corporation. Appreciate it.
Thanks for what you're doing.